Sup, YouTube? Kevin Sarcastic here. Um, just finished looking at Channel Pop's video based about the new Guardians of the Galaxy video game. And, never before have I disagreed with any of his stuff this much. First off, the whole point of them being dysfunctional superhero team with quippy jokes, that was what was great about the first movie, you asshole. The whole point about the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie was different from the rest of the MCU because it was funny. It was funny, but had perfect amount of emotion and action in it. That was what made it so enduring to any MCU fan. It wasn't that they knew the characters or that the characters were well loved or that they were just MCU in general. Yeah, them being in the MCU was part of it, but it was because they were actually good, funny, action-packed, emotional films. Okay? That was one of the most endearing parts of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. Yes, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 tried to capitalize a little too much on the raunchy comedy from the first one. I'll agree with anybody there. It did kind of go a little bit overboard with the raunchy comedy. But it was still a decent film. Because it still carried a lot of the things that was likable about the first film. And overall, Chris Pratt as Star-Lord is just iconic. Just as iconic as Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Okay. And then, the other problem I had with Channel Pup's video, and this is one that baffles me to oblivion. How the fuck do you look at the designs from Marvel's Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, the new game, and think knockoff MCU? You do realize a lot of the designs from the MCU are based off of comic books, right? So, and when I'm looking at the video game adaptations of all the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, I see more in line with the comic books than I do with the movies. Okay? Like, Iron Man's legit looks a lot like almost exactly like the Extremis armor from the 2000s. Just a little less bulky and a little less jagged. Black Widow legit looks like she came off the pages of the 2000s comics. Okay? And this was during the time when they were trying to modernize her iconic look. You know? Same as the MCU was. Hulk, to be fair, kind of does look like he does in the movie, but then again, that's just because it's kind of hard to really differentiate Hulk's look over the years. He's just big, muscular, green monster with purple pants. Like, that's something that's very hard to fuck up. Okay? But, looking at the designs for the Guardians of the Galaxy, how the fuck do you see movie in that? Peter Quill is in a 1990s punk rock style jacket. And you say knockoff of the MCU. How the fuck do you see that in that design? As far as I'm concerned, this Guardians of the Galaxy designs really looks more like they do in the comics, with just a little bit of a video game flair to it, a little bit of a fun flair to it. I would consider this more along the lines of James Gunn's Suicide Squad. You know? I know that's not the same universe, but if you look at the designs from the comic books and compare that with the designs from the upcoming Suicide Squad movie, you can see that it's classic comic book designs. Or, well, comic book designs, but with a James Gunn modernized flair to it. You know? So, when I'm hearing Channel Pup talking about he's not excited for the game just because he just doesn't like the characters in general because they're too one note, too sarcastic or some shit like that, and then saying that the other reason he's not liking it is because the designs are too derivative of the MCU. The MCU isn't the only fucking source of Marvel designs, buddy. Okay? And, like I stated before, the MCU had to get their designs from somewhere. I promise you, Kevin Feige did not pull out every single superhero design out of his ass. No. No. Every single design from the MCU is based off a comic book. Okay? Every single one. Okay? So, I don't get why you state that just because a character from the new video games are just modernized versions of the comic books, just realistic versions of the comics that you think, oh, MCU ripoff. No. This is a stylistic interpretation of a original design based off the fucking comic books. They're not actively basing it off the MCU, sir. They might include a couple of design pieces from there, but they're not actively ripping off the fucking MCU. No. Like, here's a good example. Give me a second. Okay. Son of a bitch. Okay, here's a big example for you. Taskmaster from Black Widow, the upcoming movie. The first MCU adaptation or Marvel just movie adaptation of Taskmaster in general. Okay, you see that, right? Yep. Okay. Now, this is Taskmaster from the Avengers video game. Alright? Now, one final image, just one final interpretation, little reference. This is Taskmaster from the comic books. Now tell me, down in the comment section below, what do you think this Taskmaster looks more like? Does he look more like movie Taskmaster? Or comic book Taskmaster? You see my point here? If you look at the design, well, I'm going to tell you exactly what my thought is. If you look at the design, it looks exactly like a almost copy, cut, paste of the comic book version of Taskmaster. Just a little more realistic. With the metal mask and the shorter hood. Okay? I do not... The only thing Taskmaster like... The only thing that people could say makes it look Taskmaster-like is because he has a metal helmet and a skull mask. But then again, every fucking version of Taskmaster has that design. Okay. Let's take another example for you, real quick. Let me get rid of these tabs real quick, actually. Avengers game. Okay. Everyone's favorite Iron Man. Right? Now, you're looking at that, right? Okay. Now, who do you say that looks more like? Now I'm just gonna pick a suit at random just because there are so many fucking versions in the MCU. Mark 7 Iron Man. Most notable MCU suit of Iron Man's. Okay. Okay. Right? And then... let's do... Extremis armor. Armor model 29. From the early 2000s to late 2000s. Alright? With the little triangle at the top and everything, right? Tell me. Which armor does this armor look most like? This? Or this? You see my point here? You see my point? Just because a character from a comic book is made into a video game, and then the video game makes an original outfit that looks like a realistic comic book suit, does not instantly mean it's a fucking ripoff of a movie suit. Okay? It doesn't instantly mean that. Because every design from the MCU, every design from the video games, from cartoons, is based off of a fucking comic book. Okay? And if you look at the designs from the new Avengers, the new Guardians of the Galaxy game, they look like comic book characters. More like comic books than they do the movies. Granted, the comic books have altered themselves over the years because of the MCU. I'll state that. Like, originally, Star-Lord didn't originally wear a red jacket with a gray t-shirt and a pair of black pants. No, that one came from the MCU and was adapted into the comic books. But doesn't instantly make it an MCU ripoff. Always. From any video game that comes out. If any video game comes out and you look at the designs and instantly go MCU ripoff, then you're just not going to enjoy any fucking video games whatsoever, and you should just not ask for Marvel video games. This is a point I keep fucking making in quite a few of my videos. You people keep asking comic book directors, video game developers to make video games of your favorite characters. Just demanding, begging them to make characters of video games of Spider-Man, Iron Man, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Punisher. And then when they finally come out with the video game, you end up complaining about some fucking aspect of it coming out. Whether it was the Batmobile in Arkham Knight, the designs in the Avengers. Yes, the Avengers is a very buggy game. But you guys hated it off the fucking rip because of the way the characters looked. Before the game even had a chance to fucking breathe, you were dogging it down with hate. Just because the skins looked like shitty MCU ripoffs. And then you're doing the exact same fucking thing with Guardians of the Galaxy, a game that you've been begging for them to finally make. Yeah, I know they made one a few years ago, but that company went under. And you guys won't barely even notice that game existed. Because you weren't happy with the designs because it looked like a MCU ripoff again. You didn't want to play a Telltale Guardians of the Galaxy game. Or Spider-Man, even. One of the biggest video games of 2018, along up there with God of War and let me think of another one. No, I think just God of War. Up there with God of War. You guys hated that game. Were hating on that game before it dropped because of the suit looks weird, because there isn't enough suits, they don't have this suit, or because the game was supposedly downgraded because there wasn't enough fucking puddles between the actual game dropping and the demo. Of course they're gonna change shit in a demo, they've been doing it for years. But you guys decided to let that fuel your hate for a video game that, quite frankly, didn't fucking deserve it. But yet, thinking about it, I don't know why I'm surprised you guys are doing the same fucking thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. You guys beg and whine and threaten and harass people and actually making shit for you. And then all of a sudden when they finally do it, you decide, oh hey, this isn't what I want. This... Why do they look like bad versions of MCU and all that shit? They're a stylistic interpretation of a comic book. Okay? They're doing what they fucking can, what they fucking want to, with a comic book design, okay, with source material, and their source material isn't just the MCU, isn't just cartoons, it's also the comic books. Primarily the comic books. They even state that in the thing that they were primarily searching through the comic books. Not only just looking up the designs, but also thinking of plot points and villain ideas, you know? But yet you instantly go MCU ripoff. This is a fucking common misconception I see all the time. Yes, I know there was Marvel movie-based games back in like the early 2000s or early 2010s because they stopped doing them because they found out pretty quickly that those games were shit. Now, I will state there was a couple good ones. Those being Captain America Super Soldier and X-Men Origins Wolverine. But those were about it. Those were it. Iron Man 2 was a buggy, janky mess. That was a fucking shell of a video game. That was like a half attempt at recreating the movie. And the first one was worse. The Amazing Spider-Man games were just janky messes that were loosely based off of plot points from the Amazing Spider-Man films. Let's see, oh yeah, Incredible Hulk was a buggy, broken mess that pretty much everyone forgot. Just kind of like the movie. So, yeah. That. I mean, think of what I was trying to say. Yes, they made MCU movies. But they stopped making them after they realized that they were bad. But then, years later, under better writing, better management, they finally made, and after years of you dogging them to make video games of your favorite characters, they finally do it. And the only games that's come out so far are Spider-Man Miles Morales, which people love, aside from the ones that didn't, aside from the ones that dogged it from day one, just because of the design from Spider-Man, because of a puddle incident. There's the Avengers, that has a dwindling player base, that hated the game off the fucking rip, just because the designs of the characters, the look of the characters, they weren't happy with it. Like, I can understand you stopping playing the game because it's broken. It's a buggy mess. Like, it is a fairly buggy mess, but it's still a fairly playable game. And it's still an entertaining game. And if you don't like the skins or the outfits, newsflash for you, you can pick other ones. They have alternate skins. You're not just tied down to one fucking skin set. I don't think you guys seem to understand that. Even if you guys don't like the base designs, because you think they look like trashy MC ripoffs, there are other skins you can use. Fucking hell. They advertise at the end of the trailer that you can get the classic outfits for the Guardians of the Galaxy. If you want something that doesn't look like an MCU ripoff, go with those. Or with the Avengers. I have the Avengers game. I got it with the pre-order bonuses. You can have classic versions of the Avengers skins. Fine. Have those. Wear those. Don't trash on the game just because you hate the base designs. Or even Spider-Man. The most beloved video games of the years. Of 2019. Of 2018, 2019. what the fuck ever. If you didn't like the base designs, you had Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, Infinity War, Classic, Fear Itself, just 40 different fucking skin types. And then Miles Morales, you had the base design, which people surprisingly liked, since you hated the original design. From the original design of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, I figured, hey, maybe you guys might hate the other one. But no, surprisingly you love that. But even if you didn't, you had the Into the Spider-Verse skin, you had the classic skin, you had a cartoonized version of the classic skin. You had several different futuristic Miles Moraleses if you're a Cyberpunk fan. Okay. So, why shouldn't Guardians of the Galaxy be different? Why is Guardians of the Galaxy different? Why are you guys instantly hating that off the rip? You already know, if you don't like the designs, then just pick a fucking other one. They advertise in front and center that there is alternate skins, so you don't have to hate those. You can, well, unless you're those that just like to hate everything. Just like almost everything in YouTube nowadays. But, hey, you have other options. Or hell, another big example, Marvel's Iron Man VR. Dropped for PSVR, I think last year maybe? And yet, flew under the radar for basically everybody just because nobody had interest in it in the first place, just because it was a PSVR game. You do realize there are more fan bases than just console and PC, right? There's VR players, there's console players, there's mobile game players, there's PC players. It's not just one single fucking unit of player base, you know? If someone wants to imagine themselves as Iron Man, then why not make a VR game for people who want to envision themselves in a titanium-clad suit of armor? Huh? Why not? If you're not that kind of player, then I already listed another Iron Man video game. You may not be as happy with it, but it's another option for you. Or you could play Avengers. You could play as Iron Man in that, and you have plenty of armor designs to choose from. Granted, a lot of the good ones are locked behind paywalls, I will admit that. But there are some other ones that are fairly good that you don't really have to pay for. Unless you didn't get the pre-order bonuses, then I can't really help you on that one. But then, there's also people that... There's another game, Batman Arkham VR. Flew pretty much under the radar, just because all VR games do, apparently. Was a pretty good video game. Granted, I'll probably never play it, just because I have a crippling fear of Killer Croc. But it was okay, you know. Granted, if you didn't like the base design of that one, you couldn't really change the skin like you could in Arkham Knight, because it was the same skin you started off in Arkham Knight with. But it was a fun game, and perfect for people who want to imagine themselves as Batman having an LSD trip. So there's options. Yeah, that's about it. All I can say, really. So, like, favorite, subscribe. If you're a member of Channel Pup's YouTube channel and hate me for what I just said on my video, then don't like, favorite, and unsubscribe. I personally could not give a shit. I'm just spitting truth at this point. Trying to bring common sense back to a day and age where really common sense just does not exist anymore. You got people hating shit that they asked for just because it's what they asked for. So, anyway, nothing else I can really say on that one. So, like, favorite, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.